Welcome everyone to Chibi No Podcast. This is Maj, your tech guy, and we're going to review The Lion King today. So the 2019 adaptation just came out. I just got done seeing it tonight. And let's just get into it. So I guess there will be spoilers in this, but I mean, does it really count with a movie that's just being retold that's this old? You know what I mean? So first off, I'll just say out of all the Disney adaptations that they've done, this is the most 1-to-1 ratio that I've ever seen that comes close to the original script. Like, I think next to this, I'd probably say Jungle King was probably the closest, but, you know, or like, say, like Aladdin, Beauty and the Beast, kind of added some extra stuff and made the series. And anyway, The Lion King has some of that, but it's very, very minimal. So we'll just get into it. Being a 1-to-1 ratio, like, I would say the first half of the movie, I would say was almost how do I say this? I was repeating the lines in my head and they were hitting those lines. Like, so I thought that was really cool. But anyway, the music was really, really good. They only had one new track that I noticed. It was from Beyonce. It was after Mufasa talks to Rafiki and he sees when Simba talks to Rafiki and he sees Mufasa in the water and the clouds and all that, he meets up with Nala and they run to go back to the rock, you know, to get Scar off of the throne. That's when they added a new song, and it was okay. I mean, Beyonce has a great voice, but I don't think she showed a lot of what her voice can do in this movie. My favorite part of the whole movie, I think, was the Timon and Pumbaa. Those were probably the funnest parts for me they were just really funny, right? They really embodied like the original and they brought that to life, and I think Seth Rogen as Pumbaa just killed it. But let's talk a little bit about the casting, I guess. So first off, James Earl Jones, right? He steals the show with his acting. I mean, his voice is so incredible. You know, Darth Vader, Mufasa, he's a legend, right? Every time you hear his voice, you just focus. And I thought he did honestly amazing. He embodied just the same that Mufasa that we already know and love. Now, I was worried about one major scene in this, and it's probably the scene that people remember a lot. It's when Mufasa dies. I got pretty damn emotional. Now, the worst part of it all was knowing it's coming, because, you know, we're older, we've already seen the cartoon adaptations hundreds of times if you're like me, and to be honest, that was hard because I was getting anxious, I was getting nervous, anxiety. I just didn't like knowing that he's going to die, and then now that it's real life, well, not real life, sorry, it's CGI, but the lions look so real, you know, that's another thing I need to give credit to this movie, is the animation is so amazing. These lions look so real, and to have that realism with Mufasa's death, it was very disturbing in a way, but it really did hit the punch, you know. And after the, you know, Scar tells him to run away after, you know, Mufasa dies, makes him feel guilty and thinking he killed him when obviously it was Scar. Bringing in Timon and Pumbaa in that was able to get your spirits back up from such a tragedy. You know, they're such an empowering, they're very empowering characters for Simba's growth, and they did that very well here in this film. Out of all the live adaptations of Disney, this one's definitely my favorite. Now, it's not perfect, though. This is my favorite Disney movie. I know a lot of people's favorite Disney movie growing up as a kid. It's not just my favorite Disney movie, it's one of my favorite movies of all time, and I also think it's one of the best movies of all time, especially storytelling. This is a really great coming to age. You know, I can't remember how many times I got chills and goosebumps with the original, and now in this one, I got goosebumps all over my legs, my arms, everything. It was amazing. And anyways, this one had little things so I've been praising it, but now I need to get into little things. One of the biggest, most important lines to me in the whole entire film of the original cartoon was where Rafiki is trying to get Simba to come back, and, you know, he has his staff, his wood staff, and he hits him in the head, and he says, "Ow, that hurts," right? And he's like, "Yes, that does hurt, but it doesn't matter, it's in the past, right?" And he's like, "Yeah, but the past still hurts." And he's like, "Yeah, the past still hurts, but, you know," he says, "you can either run from it or learn from it." And that is to me, one of the greatest quotes I've ever heard. And I try and live my life by that to this day. And for them to not add that, if I had a child, I'd want them to hear that line. So on top of that note, if you have a kid, I think you'd be doing a big disservice to not have your kid watch the original first before they watch this one. I do not think this is the way that you watch it for the first time. Not even close. They do a good job on expressing some of the emotions with the lions, right? But the expressions in the lions in the cartoon are always going to be better, right? Some of the expressions, like how they can, they have to keep it realistic in a sense in this movie, where the cartoons can obviously exaggerate, kind of like the thing I was worried with, like Aladdin and like the genie, right, with Will Smith. They did a very good job on that, by the way, I might add. But anyways, with the animation part of that, some stuff was taken out, like where Scar is singing with the hyenas. They don't have like the fire and all the stuff coming up. They just didn't add that. So there's certain things that if you watch the original, you kind of missed. Like Simba crawling up on the ostriches when he's singing "I Just Want to Be King," and you see all the flowers, and they didn't really have that, even though the song was all there. It's just they couldn't adapt those certain scenes. The cartoon had that magic of, if that makes sense. Also, one of the other big things was, this is one of my biggest critiques. So the Rafiki line, that is my biggest critique. I'm sorry, like, that's just me personally, growing up with nostalgia. Like, that line is so meaningful, and I think everybody needs to hear that. But the next part I have to critique that really pissed me off is I really freaking hated how they did the hyenas in this. I freaking hated the hyenas. The jokes weren't funny. They did not land for me. They might land for some. I heard some people laugh, but it was pretty quiet. I mean, when Timon and Pumbaa were on stage, everybody's laughing, right? The whole audience was laughing and clapping. It was great, but I don't know, man. They just the hyenas didn't do for me. I love Keegan, from Key and Peele, for example. Keegan was great, but it's not the original. I get that, but it just did not have the same flair. I love that part where Whoopi Goldberg, when she was I forget the name, I think it's Shenzi, the hyena. The new actress is fine, but that's not the problem. The problem is they made her like this leader of the pack crap, right? And she's supposed to be kind of an idiot like her other friend. I think that one's Azizi, I think. Can't remember, it's been a long time, sorry, but those two are like kind of the bumbling idiots, and they were really fun and together. I remember when Scar, one of the funniest jokes was removed in this, right? It's where she's talking about the name Mufasa, and she says, "Gosh, every time I hear the name that name, it sends shivers down my spine." And then, Zizi, I believe it's Zizi, or it could be Kamari. I don't remember. Anyway, it doesn't matter. It doesn't matter. So anyway, that hyena, right, tells her, like, he's like, "Mufasa," and she's like, "Ooh, do it again." And he's like, "Mufasa, Mufasa, Mufasa," and then Scar comes and he's like, "I'm surrounded by idiots." Like, just some of those really cool one-liners, right, are so good. Pumbaa, when he says, "They call me Mr. Pig," and he's trying to attack the hyenas, that's out. When they try and distract the hyenas and he had like the apple in his mouth to distract them, like, that's out. Like, there's these little things that the cartoon has so much charm that this live adaptation takes away. I mean, not only on some of the most important lines, but also some of the most important jokes, and it's not as good as the original, and a lot of these never will be. I'm sorry, but I do have to dock off points for that. It really pissed me off. But other than that, I mean, music was great, the beats were great, the pacing was great. It's almost a 1-to-1. Like, the first half really was like you could watch the original cartoon and every line's like the same until about the second half, and then stuff starts just getting it's still 1-to-1, but the lines are different, or the jokes are different. But anyway, so the ending was great, right? The fight scene looked amazing. Again, just the animation was just top notch, man. I'd love to see a making of it, how they were able to do this. Again, it's my favorite of the Disney movies. Next would probably be Aladdin, and then The Jungle Book and Beauty and the Beast are kind of a close third. I never got to see Cinderella or anything yet, but anyway, I would definitely go see it. If you had kids, I would have them see it only if they've seen the original first. They need to watch the cartoon first. I'm sorry, it's a better movie by miles. Still one of the best movies of all time. So yeah, overall, that's kind of my review. I definitely recommend it. I would highly suggest to ignore the critics. The critics are reviewing this around like the 5s and 6s, but if you look at the audience scores, they're in the 90s. 9 out of 10s, 9 plus out of 10s. It's just another kind of like Last Jedi kind of situation, you know. Sometimes the critics are close with the viewers, and other times it's a complete opposite. And this one's a complete opposite. Ignore the critics. I don't know what the hell their problem is. This movie is amazing. It was really, really good. After that, although, let's give it a score. So I think I would give this one, some of the most important scenes, like I already said in this review, is very important to me. And those getting removed are very hurtful. Very, very hurtful. And thank goodness I always will have the originals to watch. And that will be the one I will continue to watch. I'm glad I saw this. Don't know if I'll see it again. But I think I'll just stick to my cartoon version. So, with that being said, I think I would give this movie a solid... I'm going to go with an 8 out of 10. I'd like to give it an 8.5, but I'm sorry. Some of those things are so meaningful for me and so big and important that some of those lines, you'll see when you watch the movie that they should have not been cut, and they were, and that's really disappointing. So, 8 out of 10. I think it's the best of the Disney movies. Aladdin, for example, I'll probably give it 7.8, and then the other one's probably like 7.5, 7s for the rest of the others. But anyway, definitely go see. Very good movie. Tell me what your thoughts are down in the comments. Did you like it? Did you not like it? And if you did like or not like, what were your thoughts about it? I'd love to hear from you guys. Anyways, this is Miles, your tech guy, and this is Chibi No Podcast.